Okay, game 2 here, and there are a few things happening on this board. It is a bit strange. There's Magpie, that is usually a pile you want to contest. Not really sure about that yet. There's Storyteller as well, which again I have trouble sorting out how to use that. Lost City is there, which is an excellent card. Two cards, two actions, cannot complain about that. There's Knight, however, there's also Lighthouse, which can provide you adequate defense, especially with all the draw on the board. Storyteller, Lost City, Embassy even. You can get a Lighthouse and play every turn and be completely immune to the Knight. So I don't think the Knights are going to be that much of a factor if you go for the engine. My first thought was, well, what about Embassy Big Money? But Embassy Big Money gets beat by a combination of Taxman and the Knights, in an engine that is. So you can't go for money because that'll lose to the engine just due to the attack. So you have to build the engine, right? And then, well, what do you want to play a lot of? The only thing to play a lot of is money, really. There might be knights, but if your opponent is playing engine too, then they're gonna have a lighthouse in play every turn, and the knights are not going to attack. And there's very few knights that are useful without the attack. Like Sylvia is one because it gives you 2 money. Anyways, my opponent opens with the lighthouse. I thought about Herbalist there, but there was nothing that was gonna buy that would allow me to make use of the plus buy so early, so I picked up a lighthouse alongside him, and my opponent gets the Magpie, whereas I pick up the Lost City on the 2-5 split. I mean, I don't think not having 2-5 is terrible here. The Lost City is okay. It also allows my opponent to get up towards 6 that turn, and they pick up a Storyteller. So here, I see my opponent isn't going very heavily for the knight, so I stop for a moment to pick up the Herbalist. I will want it. I don't want to have $16 and have to buy a Herbalist. So I just get it now on a turn where I have, what, 3 coin. So here now I start in on the Magpies. I don't know what to say about Magpies, but here I see this Magpie plus Storyteller play from my opponent, and this is what I thought they were going for, to get lots of Magpies and then use the money that the Magpie draws to enable more draw of the Storyteller. So at that point I became a bit wary of the Magpie Storyteller interaction and wanted to cut into the Magpies a bit more deeply, because my opponent has 2 already, I only have the 1, so maybe they might win the Magpie split, I'm not sure. Anyways, I pick up a Storyteller here instead of a Lost City. I am not really sure why I did that. Maybe Lost City was better. I play my Magpie here, and it gains me a Magpie, and on 4 here, I could get a couple Lighthouses and just call that enough Lighthouses for the game. But I don't want to let my opponent win the Magpie split because I'm worried about this Magpie Storyteller interaction allowing for massive draw. This is what I thought would happen anyway. Magpie and Storyteller cards I'm not good with at all. Well, yeah, I'm not good with these cards. I don't know how to use them very well, so I was uncertain through this whole game about, oh, should I buy Storyteller, should I buy Magpie? I don't know. Anyways, my opponent comes up with 6 and 2 buys here, and could get 2 things. You don't have to get 2 things. You could just go for a Lost City here, for example. That'll be perfectly reasonable. Oh, also one other thing to point out is that the Lighthouse and the Storyteller work well together, because you can play the Lighthouse, then play a Storyteller, get a bit extra draw. You can't do that with the Herbalist. You need a Lost City first to be able to use the coin from Herbalist to draw cards. Anyway, my opponent spends some time thinking here and goes for a Taxman, and that is another card I'm very unfamiliar with, because, and another Lighthouse there. I'm unfamiliar with Taxman because ever since I came into the Dominion, seeing people, say Taxman isn't good, so I just believed them and never actually picked up the card and tried for myself. So, but I can see uses for it here. There's Storyteller, Magpie picks up treasure, and Taxman improves your treasure. So in terms of consistency of your deck not stalling, I think the Taxman is the way to go. You can have your core 7 treasures and just improve that up to all 7 goals ideally, rather than having to add 8, 9, 10 treasures. And that increases the chance that you draw a hand of 5 treasures and do nothing else for that turn, is what I'm saying. So that was my thought with the Taxman. So I will probably get one just for that reason, to be honest. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have picked up a Taxman this game. Anyway, all the magpies are finished, and I win the split 6-4, so I was happy about that. I thought that was important. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. At any rate, 7 and 2 buys here means I can get my second lighthouse, which I want, and I can get my pick. I can get the Taxman, I can get a city here, a lost city, I should be clear. City is a different card. But city becomes lost city when one pile is empty, which is, you know, something. Anyways, I opt for the outpost here instead of the lost city, and instead of the storyteller, instead of the embassy even. I thought it would be useful, but outpost in these kinds of decks with no trashing, and you only draw 3 cards, you're not guaranteed anything. It could be horrible. You could just draw 3 estates and that'll be the end of your turn there. So I don't know. I wanted to try the outpost. I thought it would give me decent enough turns even with 3 cards. I thought it would be reasonable. So I picked up the outpost there. It may be a shade too early, I thought initially, but I still decided to go for it. Anyways, moving on. My opponent is able to draw with Storyteller here and plays the Herbalist and comes up with 5 here and just 2 buys, but is only going to pick up a single lost city, which is fine. You want it, let's draw. Here you see the Lighthouse and Storyteller thing here as opposed to the Herbalist. So here I play both my Lighthouses to get more draw of the Storyteller. Drawing up to the end of the shuffle here. I trigger the shuffle because I realize I have, what, 2 magpies and a lost city. Probably get to the end of everything. Do get to the end, so this is the first time I've drawn my deck here. And I have a whopping 6 coins and 2 buys. I pick up the Taxman now, all the magpies are done, so that key $4 pile is no longer an issue for me, so I feel like I'm free to get the Taxman now. Here you see my first outpost turn. Yeah, 4 coin is not great. 5, I would have been happy with 5. Could have got the 5, who knows. But 4, I mean, a second Taxman, I don't know. As another, I don't want to get more than 3 lighthouses because lighthouses, they don't draw. They're flat cards, so I don't want too many of them in my deck. They're nice with the Storyteller, but I don't want to have a hand full of lighthouses. Just want them to defend me from potential attacks. And now we both have Taxmen, so there's that. Anyway, my opponent picks up another lost city there, and I'm able to play my Taxman, upgrading a copper and drawing the silver with the subsequent Storyteller there. Coming up with 8, a bit more money this time. And I go for a lost city and another Herbalist. Now this Herbalist doesn't really come into play until the very end of the game, and maybe that is when I should have bought it. I was kind of iffy buying the Herbalist there, but I picked it up. Maybe bad, not entirely sure about that. Anyways, as you've noticed, I've sped this game up quite a bit. When I uploaded this, it was 50 minutes long, so I've sped these turns up quite a bit because there's not a lot going on except for deck drawing and, you know, Taxman attacking people maybe. I pick up a lost city and gain a silver here through the Taxman. My opponent has a turn here with the Magpie, the lost city, couple lighthouses. Just 4, so that's good for me. They go for another lighthouse here. Like I said, I'm not going to get more than 3 lighthouses because they don't draw me cards. Play these magpies to look for treasures for my Storyteller, and they do find some. Still not able to draw the deck consistently, but I have the outpost here. 7. I pick up a Storyteller instead of a lost city here. The Storyteller has the potential for more draw than the Lost City, but the Lost City has the plus actions, and I have a bit more terminals. And at this point, I really wanted an embassy because embassy is just, it seems like it'll be such a good fit in this kind of deck. It draws a lot. You can discard three. For example, you can discard three treasures and then play your magpies near the end of your turn, and they work like labs. They work brilliantly. So I really wanted to pick up an embassy at some point, but I mean, Lost City was far too important to me, and I still was struggling with the draw in my deck. I know that I have the extra Herbalist, I have the Taxman now, I have some lighthouses. I need quite a bit of draw, so I was trying to focus on that before picking up the embassy. Even though embassy is draw, I wasn't confident I would have the actions to fully support that. Anyways, 12 2-buys for my opponent, Storyteller, and they pick up the embassy. They beat me to the punch, and I was sad about it. Well, not really sad, I was just like, oh man, I had the idea from before as well. Anyways, Outpost turn from my opponent here has 6 and buys like gold at this point. Not sure. I mean, maybe they could have picked up the Lost City, but this is where the second Herbalist comes into play. If they bought the Lost City, I potentially had a way to end the game with the third buy from the Herbalist. You know, buy 3 lighthouses, 1 turn, Outpost, Lighthouse Estate, win game. Yeah, but because my opponent only has the 1 Herbalist, it means I can safely buy that Lost City. What is the most you can do? 2 buys per turn? Fine, buy all the lighthouses. I'll win on turns. So I can get the last Lost City, get more draw. So I have also win that split 6-4. So that's good for me. I have more draw Lost City wise, Magpie wise, maybe if Magpie draws. And the next item on my list is the Embassy. So here I fell behind because my opponent came up with what, 16 and 2 buys, but they didn't go for double province. That surprised me. I thought my opponent would go for double province, instead picking up another Storyteller, which is fine, which is reasonable. The draw is not quite there, and I don't think it'll ever be 100% there in this kind of deck. You have to do your best to try and supplement it. So here, get the maximum draw to the Storyteller. I want to draw through my entire deck and see how much money I can come up with, because I need to start going for points if Mixinoc is at double province already. So here I draw quite a bit of cards, and I have a bit of a trick here with the Embassy. What I can do, because I can overdraw a bit, is discard 2 lighthouses and a Lost City, and then use the Storyteller to draw just 1 card. Hopefully it's not the Lost City, because I want to set it up for my Outpost turn. It probably would have been better to put the Storyteller down, but there's less chance that I'm able to keep that Storyteller in the top 3 cards. So I don't think it would have been very likely had I put the Storyteller in the discard pile via the Embassy. Instead, I put the Lost City, and it works out because I just draw 1 of the 3 cards. It happens to be just a Lighthouse. So I have successfully top decked a Lost City, and that allows me to find out a Storyteller, draw some cards, and I get up to province. So effectively double province there for me, and a Storyteller as well. So here my opponent gets quite a bit of draw to the Storyteller, so that's good for them. Probably going to have another full turn here. Full turn meaning they can see the entire deck anyway. I'm just waiting to see if 16 and 2 buys comes up again, because if that happens, I'm probably dead in the water. I checked there, my opponent can't quite do the same Embassy trick that I did. And something else Steph also pointed out in the chat on Mixinoc's live stream is that you can use Herbalist to top deck a gold if you have already seeded your starting hand with a Storyteller, so you can get a lot of draw that way, and that's exactly what you want on an Outpost. Don't just kickstart your draw, find your Lost Cities, and push on from there. So I missed that. I didn't at all think about that. Credit to Steph for that one, but that is something that you can do if you follow that at all. Anyways, 13 and 2 buys for my opponent. Province, and could be Duchy, could be another Storyteller, but now the Storyteller pile is looking a bit low. That red thing is there with the new update. Instead, my opponent gets a duchy, and the outpost turn yields them another duchy. Now I'm playing these magpies before the lost city just to hopefully draw off some treasure. I hope that's right. Otherwise, I've just been misplaying magpies. Because if the second card is treasure, then the magpie can draw it. I don't have to use the lost city to draw that treasure. That was my thought process. I hope that's correct. Just sacrificing a couple cards to the storyteller here because I feel like I know I have what, two lost cities in the back. I think all the magpies are out, but I have two lost cities in this remaining 13 or so cards. So just trying to find those and have them draw instead of using up all my money for storyteller draw. And again, I can do the embassy trick, seeding my next hand with the lost city. It doesn't work out that turn, but I mean you have to try, right? So 14 and 2 buys for me again, not quite double province, but province duchy, which is decent. Here, I'm able to get another duchy, and this is a nice thing what Taxman does. If the lighthouse isn't up, I can either make my opponent discard treasure, which is good, or I can see their hand, which is also good, perhaps even more valuable than discarding a treasure in some cases. So that's a good thing. Cut purse also does the same thing. If there's no coppers in hand, you can see their hand. So that is a little subtle point about these attacks. You can peer into their hand, see if they have, a stall turn, and then you can better plan this turn. Anyways, my opponent puts gold, gold, silver down to a storyteller. So it's just a matter of seeing how much money they can get. Drawing the deck is no problem after pulling 9 cards off that storyteller. Taxman again, silver into gold. And at this point, my opponent comes up with 13, goes for a province and a duchy, and the outpost turn yields them a duchy and an estate. So now I'm 7 points behind. Double duchy will not do it for me. So I don't have a great turn there. I just have to take Dame Josephine, which is luckily on the top for 2 points. My opponent doesn't come up with any points on that turn. It allows me an opportunity to go for the win with the 2 duchies. Now that'll give me the win because I have Dame Josephine. It'll give me the win by 1. So here I find the herbalist that I was looking for and just double check to make sure that the double duchy wins. And that is the end of game 2. Thanks for watching. Comments please.